funny. So, all right, I wanna transition off this. Listen, I don't want to spend the whole night on trolls because I can go on and on about it. But I saw something else funny on your I think on your are you a Game of Thrones fan?
I was.
You was? Are you one of the ones who feels like this season is letting them down?
Yeah,
Let's
I
talk
am.
about it.
Okay, so here's the thing. I have historically been a an advocate of letting things play out to the end, because especially if it's episodic. Like a movie's one thing, but things like a TV series or even a comic book series, like when Nick Spencer had the whole Hydra cap, Captain America run where Captain America was the Hydra, but it was, and that first issue with him, with that now infamous panel of him saying "Hail Hydra,"
Hail Hydra, yeah.
fans lost it. He was getting death threats. First off, I don't care how badly a writer or director screws up what you think is your property, you never send a death threat. Like, that's
Right.
psychotic.
You know what that reminded me of? Remember when Superman was changed into that electrical character and people lost their minds?
So,
oh my God.
So I argued. I said, guys, like, it's a comic book. Like, this is the first issue. There's a whole arc that they have built out. Like, it's episodic storytelling. Maybe give it more than like 20 pages before you lose your shit.
Or you like pitchforks.
Pitchforks and torches. Yeah. So I'm generally a big advocate of maybe this season isn't going the way you want it or whatever, but like, let it play out to the end and then judge. I think considering we have one episode left, and because you can compare the quality of this season to previous seasons, I think I'm safe in saying, and also the fact that it's been reported that Benioff and Weiss were offered more episodes, and they were like, "No, we're good. We're ready to do other things." The corner cutting is becoming really apparent, and through most of Game of Thrones, especially when they were still on books, but even for a while after they went off book, the plot serviced the characters. And this season, now the characters are serving the plot. And that's never the way it should be. So this was a huge, and I'm also not a person that, I don't ever bash something if it doesn't turn out the way I thought it would, or if it doesn't end the way I thought it would.
Right.
If it's still well done. Because I recognize, I'm like, okay, I don't really go into things with expectations about how something's going to end or what I want to see, because I know that that's
setting chance you might not going to see that.
Yeah, that's setting myself up for disappointment. So, right. And even if I do see something that I'm like, oh, that's not how I thought it was going to go, or not what I wanted, if it's done well, I can appreciate it. So for me, it's not a criticism that, because I'm getting really upset with journalists, like, TV journalists and critics I see saying fans are mad because the season's not ending how they want it to. It's like, no. It's not where it's going. It's how it's getting there. And that's the problem, because the storylines in seasons past were so intricate and they were given time to breathe and develop, and there was so much character development that you bought it. I would buy Dany's turn as Mad Queen. They have planted plenty of seeds about her being cruel and vindictive and vicious. I've never liked Dany. I have not liked her character from the first season. Never. Wow. I've never liked her character. I have been like the only person, like at one point I was the only person at my old outlet at Movie Pilot that like openly disliked her, and my entire, like all my other coworkers were like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? She's amazing. She has dragons. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Like, she's an idiot. So I never liked her. And this is me saying this as a staunch like Dany hater, that I'm sorry, like, we need more than 30 seconds of her sitting on top of her dragon looking like a psychopath for me to believe, like, for that complete 180 heel turn to feel earned. At least give us a couple of episodes watching her where we can see her kind of unravel under the strain, as opposed to, we had there was like that one scene where she's leaning against the window and talks to Tyrion, and then she has that one meeting with Jon where he's like, I don't want to make out with you anymore, and then she's like, fine, I'm just gonna burn everything. which still doesn't make sense because the scene after that, she was like, we'll show mercy, and then cut to King's Landing and she's torching everything. So it's just stuff like character.
Well, maybe John should have made out with her. Wow.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I wouldn't. After she tried, if I were John and she tried to tell me what I can and can't tell people or about my own personal history, I've been like, no, we're not.
That you're right. That was, as much as I love, I like this season. I mean, I wasn't invested in like the books or anything that much. I mean, I never read them, so I only have the TV shows to go by. But I got to admit, that was the part that was happening that even though I'm a fan of Khaleesi, but when she told John, don't tell your own family. No, I was like, no, what are you talking about? I couldn't co-sign on that.
Yeah.
So I'm on board with you.
I love the second episode of the season was, I think, one of the best episodes we've ever seen in Game of Thrones. It was all character development, or like not necessarily character development. It was character interactions. It was almost pure fan service with seeing these kind of interactions. We wanted to see like Arya and the Hound meeting up again, and
was that the one where
A Knight of Seven Kingdoms,
where she was knighted and
Knight of Seven Kingdoms.
That was the best.
That was one of the best episodes. That was the best episode, not just this season, but in many seasons. And I think that's the thing that a lot of these writers that are kind of like, now the fan petition to have the last season remade is ridiculous, and those fans are stupid. But for me, why, like one of my friends who like, he doesn't really watch Game of Thrones, he's like, you're really mad about this, like days later. He's like, that's not really, you're pretty chill about things, like you accept things. And he's like, you're still really mad. I'm like, I am, because I'm mad at the wasted potential, because this was arguably one of the greatest shows in television history, and they mailed it in. The last season, they just mailed it in because they just didn't care anymore, and that lets down the cast, none of which are happy about the season. If you watch interviews, they're not happy at all. It lets down the crew. It's a shame because the crappy writing has overshadowed some of the beautiful cinematography and direction and the scoring and the acting from this season, all of which have, quite a few episodes or scenes or whatever have been phenomenal on a number of levels if it weren't for the writing. So I feel like the two of them have let down a lot of people, and I think it's a frustration because it's born of knowing what the show was and how it could have ended.
Right.
And it could end in the same way, but it's just how it's getting there. It could have been done so much better and with more care and attention to it, rather than just kind of trying to hurry it up and, cut corners like it has been this season.
How crazy was like the whole situation with the Starbucks cup, which would have just been just a little, they made a mistake, a little laugh situation, but having that happen after an episode where people literally could not see what was going on in one of the biggest battles they've ever had on this series. It just, like, I agree. It goes into the quality that lack thereof that's been given, in the season. Like I said, I still enjoy what they're doing, only because I couldn't write any better than what they've been giving us. But I can see where some of the anger is coming from. I mean, I feel like that whole they made that into a whole Starbucks cup gate kind of a situation.
Yeah, which was silly.
It was silly.
That happens all the time.
Yes.
It happens all the time.
You know how many wristwatches I see in the Middle Ages?
Wristwatches, or there was a car in Lord of the Rings. Like there's stuff all the time.
I missed that. Did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, it's when they're losing the chair.
I'm gonna have to Google that.
That stuff happens all the time, and it's not a big deal. Like it doesn't really, if it detracts, if you even notice it in the moment, and it detracts from the story around it, then they have much bigger problems than that little continuity
that little
error.
thing. Exactly. It took, like, because I would have to say 99.9% of people didn't even notice it, but that 1.1%, the person that does, and then they have access to the internet. I felt like it was one of those things that maybe a couple of seasons ago just would have been laughed off. But with the fact that this is the final season and the whole lighting and you're rushing and all these other things everybody's complaining about, it's like, this is Starbucks gate. How much did Starbucks pay you to ruin my show or something?
Yeah, my friends and I all laughed. We're like, man, there's a script supervisor. We're like, there's a scripty somewhere right now that's livid, because I can guarantee they noticed it and they said that needs to go, and the editor was like, nobody will notice, or the editor missed it, and so now there's a script supervisor that got blamed for it that's livid because they probably saw it, and then but they're like, well, too late now, nobody will notice, and then it blew up. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine said, oh, somebody got fired. I'm like, what are you talking about? The show wrapped.
Yeah, nobody got fired. Yeah, the show's done. It's done.
Who got fired? This got wrapped like months ago.
I will say I do have to own, speaking of the Game of Thrones showrunners, I have to acknowledge that I was wrong a year ago or whenever it was, when they announced that they were going to do that Confederate series. What if the South had won the Civil War?
Oh, I heard about that.
And there was a huge internet uproar, and it immediately got pulled, and they're like, never mind, we're not going to do this anymore. And I remember the time I was like, I understand the sentiment, but I'm really hesitant about, again, I'm more a proponent of, let something play out at least let us see before we pass judgment. And the internet outrage was so much that it got canceled before it even began. I'm like, maybe this could be a really poignant show that explores race relations, or kind of a Man in the High Castle sort of situation where it's a really well done story, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it just, I'm like, it doesn't have to be, something can be racial and explore that without being racist. And I was like, let's just, saying like, let's give them a chance. And I wasn't really like upset when it got canceled, but I was also a little bit like, I don't know how I feel about like fans having that much power, to kill something before it begins. But in the last few seasons, having watched Game of Thrones and seeing how women and people of color are treated by the pair of them, I'm like, you know what? I take it back. Like, that was my white privilege talking, and my kind of ignorance and looking at it from that point of view. And now that I've kind of looked back at Game of Thrones, I'm like, yep, you know what? I don't. These aren't the dudes to handle a very nuanced
subject like that
about the South winning the Civil War. Like, you know what? Y'all are right. Good call. Getting that canceled.
Because I mean, just the subject matter alone is not. It's not like it was going. I don't know what some people were like. For example, I guess let's say if it was put in the hands of a creative team that you trusted. It's not like when Roots came out. It's not like when Roots came out that slavery was going to come back again. We as a country, people got to see that, and I feel like it did a lot of good for race relations, and it because I don't think that people should treat things like, okay, this was a black eye on this on the history of this and that and the other, so we should pretend like it doesn't exist. Let's not burn books and erase history, because I feel like we're gonna, what's that saying about if you don't learn from history, you're gonna be doomed to repeat it. So I wasn't upset that show was being developed, but I'm just like you. I was like, okay, but how is this going to play out? How is this? So I was curious on how it was going to be done. So if I would have saw the first episode and I would have went, nope, this isn't for me, then that's what I was waiting for. But you're not the first person that I've heard say that about that creative team, that these aren't probably the guys that would have been the best.
If Jordan Peele handled it, if Ava DuVernay handled it, I'm like, cool, I'm in. I think they'll do an amazing job with it. two dudes that basically reduced all the brown people in Game of Thrones to like slaves, or the one of color basically just got beheaded.
Mm.
The two dudes that wrote the line for Sansa Stark a couple episodes ago, where she basically thanks her rapists for making her stronger. It was like, ooh, that's what.
Like, yeah, that track record.
Like, yeah, you know what? And like, yeah, so over like the last 2 seasons, I've been like, you know what? I take it back. I think we can safely say that just seeing the way they handle these storylines, I do not have faith in them. They would have handled the storylines of Confederate with the nuance and the understanding and awareness that they would have needed to.
You're probably right.